Mr. Brown, you're under investigation for theft and financial fraud. Those words sliced through the calm morning air like a knife. For years, Kody Brown had lived like a king. Bold, boisterous, unflappable. But on that Flagstaff, Arizona morning, the king's crown began to crack. When two officers emerged from the black SUV onto his front porch, Kody's footing shifted. His breathing caught. His hands shook. For the first time in a long time, Kody Brown was at someone else's mercy. He squinted hard, hoping perhaps he had misheard. "What did you just say?" he barked, attempting a laugh that sounded plastic. The officer slowly repeated, "Mr. Brown, you're under investigation for theft and fraud involving finances. You have to appear in court next week. Here are your papers." He produced a thick envelope. The state of Arizona versus Kody W. Brown. The sunlight caught the glint from the seal. Everything felt too bright, too harsh, too open. Kody stiffened, his voice belligerent. "There has to have been some error. I haven't taken a thing. I've worked my entire life for what I do have." But deep within himself, fear was growing, cold, sweltering waves he could not stem. The officer didn't argue. He just nodded professionally. "Sir, you'll have your chance to explain in court." Then they walked away, leaving Kody standing in his driveway, the subpoena in his shaking hands. The desert wind picked up, rustling the trees and scattering dust like ashes around him. Inside the house, Robin's voice echoed faintly from upstairs. "Kody, who was that?" He didn't answer, he just stared at the papers. In hours, the news went online. TMZ, Reality Buzz, and scores of Sister Wives fan sites erupted with the title, "Kody Brown under investigation for the FT. Family funds missing." Reddit was ablaze. Facebook groups swarmed with rumors. Some fans expressed they weren't surprised. Others decried it as fake news. But everyone demanded one thing: answers. Meri was in her bed and breakfast in Utah when her phone began to buzz continuously. She rubbed her eyes, believing it was a joke, until she read the headline. Her heart sank. No, he wouldn't," she murmured. But she knew better. Meri had spent years watching the man she once loved become hard, remote, obsessed with domination. Yet she had never expected it would lead this far. She gazed out the window at the desolate road. Years of silence, fidelity, and forbearance. And now she breathed softly, as if to herself. Perhaps the truth reached him at last. Meanwhile, across town, Christine was drinking her morning tea when her teenage daughter burst in with a phone in her hand. "Mom, see this." Christine came to a standstill reading the news. Kody Brown charged with embezzling more than $250,000 from family trust. Her grip on the cup grew tighter. She did not speak for a moment. Then she breathed softly. So the truth finally comes out. She thought back on those constant fights over money. Kody insisting on managing everything himself, saying he was doing it to protect the family, that he wouldn't let anyone look at the accounts. Christine had always sensed that something was off. But whenever she questioned him, he'd spin it around, make her sound like a crazy person. Now it all made sense. Robin, on the other hand, sat at her kitchen table and glared at her phone, her heart racing. She read the headline over and over again, wishing it weren't true. Kody Brown accused, her hands trembled as she read the article. It itemized the charges: lost funds, clandestine transfers, off-the-books accounts. Her heart constricted. She knew of those accounts. Kody explained them were for tax reasons, that she should not worry. Now she wasn't so sure. Robin flipped off her phone, buried her hands against her face, and breathed softly. "Please, Kody, tell me this isn't true." But secretly, she thought she already knew. By noon, the Brown family group chat was in disarray. Chanel sent the first message. "Kody, what is going on? Are you really under investigation?" Christine immediately followed. "You lied to us all. I warned you this would come back to haunt you." Meri didn't type for a while. Then at last, she wrote one brief message. "You need to accept the truth, Kody." He read the messages but didn't respond. He laid his phone face down on the table and strode to the window. Outside the window, reporters were already congregating. Cameras, microphones. satellite vans. Kody had always enjoyed being in front of the camera when he was in command. But this was different. Now he was the headline. And each flash of a camera was like a gut punch. He grumbled to himself. They don't get it. I created everything. I made this family famous. I sustained it. But as the voices outside became louder, the truth bore down on his chest. Later that night, Robin came upon Kody in the living room. The subpoena on the table. She whispered. What's going on, Kody? They're accusing you of taking money from the family trust. Tell me it's not true. He massaged his temples, not willing to glance at her. It's complicated, Robin. I did not steal anything. I simply transferred the funds. For safety. For safety, she echoed, incredulity in her voice. Why didn't you inform the others? Because they would not understand. He barked. Every time I try to take charge, they resist. They never trust me. I was protecting what's mine. What ours? Robin's eyes welled up with tears. You mean what was going to be all of ours? Kody got up, pacing. You think this is easy? You think that I wanted this? The family dissolved. Robin. I was the only one keeping it together. She didn't dispute. She simply whispered. Maybe that's why it fell apart. That evening, Kody couldn't sleep. Anything a closing car door, the click of a camera, a blast of wind, sent his heart pounding. He ran through the morning in his head again and again. The officers, the eyes they gave him, the feel of that envelope in his palm. At 2 a.m., he sat down at his laptop and began scrolling through bank statements, searching for something to excuse what he had done. Numbers, transfers, dates. All of it glared back at him in hard black letters. He muttered. It wasn't theft. It was survival. But even he no longer believed it. The courthouse steps the next morning were filled with reporters. Fans stood out front, some waving support signs, others outraged. Justice for Meri. Christine was right. Kody, be honest. TLC released a brief statement. We are aware of the allegations surrounding Kody Brown and will keep developments under close observation. For Kody, it was a nightmare that he couldn't escape. All his friends he'd ever had stopped taking calls. Even some of his kids would not answer. He was alone. Really agonizingly alone. But the worst was not the humiliation in public. The worst was that he knew that those who had loved him most, the women who had shared his bed, his ambitions, his children, now regarded him suspiciously with disgust. 3 days had passed since the announcement, and Kody stood in front of his mirror, wearing his finest suit. The courthouse appearance was a requirement. His image glared back. Gone was the confident smile, replaced with fear. Adjusting his tie, Robin appeared in the doorway. Her voice was little more than a whisper. Are you ready? He nodded, yet his eyes gave him away. I'll take care of it, he said, trying to maintain calm. I've always taken care of everything. She didn't budge. Kody, this isn't a TV show anymore. This is real. He faced her, pleading. You still trust me, don't you? Her silence was louder than any response. When the black SUV came to take him to court, Kody emerged outside. Shutters clicked in the air. The reporters yelled out questions. He ignored them, looking straight ahead. For the first time, the man who had once boasted of presiding over a spiritual empire appeared. Small. The courthouse rose up in the distance. Tall, gray, unforgiving. Each step he took toward it was more weighed down. Behind the police barricades, Meri and Christine stood shoulder to shoulder for the first time in years. They did not say a word. They did not have to. Both knew this day had been inevitable. As Kody mounted the courthouse steps, the wind began to blow, sending sand swirling across the pavement. The flag at the top of the building waved furiously. A storm was brewing, and as the doors swung shut behind him, the rest of the world waited with bated breath. The man once king of a family now stood before the law, and the truth was in waiting. The Flagstaff courthouse hummed with intensity. Camera crews jostled for room on the step. Reporters memorized lines as curious bystanders murmured behind railings. Within, all the seats inside the courtroom were filled. Fans, reporters, and even some old friends. They had all come to see one thing. Kody Brown versus the truth. The doors creaked wide, and all attention was focused. Kody entered, his suit impeccably clean, but his face tense. His golden curls were tucked back, his shoulders squared, but his eyes gave him away. They danced uneasily toward the front row, where three recognizable faces were seated: Meri, Christine, and Robin. For the first time in years, all of Kody's wives were together in the same room. But there were no smiles, no warmth, only pain and silence. The bailiff shouted out, "All rise for the Honorable Judge Rebecca Hayes." Everyone rose. The judge, her face serene and imposing, sat down. She regarded the courtroom, her gaze settling on Kody. "Mr. Brown," she said, her tone level, "you are charged with misappropriation of family assets, fraud, and unauthorized transfer of trust property. Do you comprehend the allegations against you?" Kody swallowed hard. "Yes, Your Honor." "And how do you plead?" Kody paused, looking at his lawyer, a young man who appeared to be nearly as anxious as his client. Then, gritting his teeth, Kody declared, "Not guilty." The courtroom erupted into gasps. Christine shook her head slowly. Meri muttered under her breath, "Of course he'd say that." The prosecutor, Alyssa Grant, a keen woman, stood up and delivered her opening statement. "Your Honor, this is not a case about TV stardom. This is not a case about family soap. It is a case of deception and betrayal. Mr. Brown was in charge of administering a family trust, a trust for all four wives and the children. But rather than safeguarding that trust, he covertly deposited more than $250,000 into a private account in his own name." She hesitated, allowing the words to hang thick in the air. "This case will illustrate how Mr. Brown took advantage of those around him, utilizing their belief, their devotion, and their affection to line his own pockets. The proof will be evident. The path of deceit will be irrefutable." Kody's lawyer, James Keller, was up next. His tone attempted to be measured, but his hands were restless. "Your Honor, my client is a businessman, a provider, and a father of 18. This is not theft. It's a misunderstanding." Mr. Brown juggled several accounts to ensure his family would not have to face financial uncertainty. "The prosecution is manipulating ordinary transactions into something nefarious. We will show he did absolutely nothing wrong." Judge Hayes nodded. "Go ahead with your first witness." The prosecutor looked in the direction of the gallery. "The state calls Meri Brown." Meri rose, her heels snapping on the floor as she walked to the witness stand. She was refined but weary, a woman who had carried too much for too long. She took the oath and set the microphone to a comfortable level. "Mrs. Brown," the prosecutor started, "can you tell us what the family trust was about?" Meri nodded. "It was intended to benefit all of us. Me, Christine, Janelle, Robin, and Kody. It contained the money we made from sister wives and our shared businesses. We all agreed that no one would transfer money without everybody's approval. And was Mr. Brown part of that agreement?" "Yes," Meri spoke softly. "It was his suggestion." Alyssa nodded. "So when did you know something was amiss?" Meri paused, looking at Kody for a moment. "A few months after Christine left. I was reconciling the books for our B&B and saw a huge transfer. $80,000 missing. I thought I'd made a mistake. Then I checked the rest of the accounts. The total that was missing was $250,000. The courtroom murmured. "What did you do next?" "I called Kody," Meri said, her voice trembling slightly. "I asked him where the money went. He said it was for a new family project. But he wouldn't explain. When I pushed harder, he yelled. Said I didn't trust him. That's when I knew he was hiding something." Kody's lawyer jumped up. "Objection, Your Honor. Speculation about my client's intent." The judge's eyebrow went up. "Sustained. Stay within what you personally saw, Mrs. Brown." Meri nodded. "That's all I know. The money had disappeared. He never explained to us why." The prosecutor smiled graciously. "Thank you, Mrs. Brown." Kody looked away from her as she climbed down. The prosecutor next called Christine Brown to testify. The air was heavy as she walked. Christine had a folder under her arm marked "Evidence, Transfers and Statements." "Mrs. Christine Brown," Alyssa started, "you used to be a member of this family business too." "Yes," Christine asserted. "We all were." "And did you ever have Kody take money out of the trust?" "Never," Christine replied unequivocally. "When I began questioning things, he called me paranoid, that I was trying to destroy his image." She pulled out her folder and handed something to the judge. "This is a copy of the transaction records I extracted with my accountant. The name on those transfers, Kody's, all of them." The judge examined the documents. her face neutral. And what was your response when you realized this? Christine glared at Kody. I felt betrayed, not only as a wife, but as someone who trusted him with everything. He told me we were partners, but he was moving alone, in secret. Kody shifted, his jaw clenched. Alyssa approached. Mrs. Brown, did you know if there was any relation between those transfers and a firm called CK Holdings LLC? Christine nodded slowly. Yes, that's when things got strange. My accountant tracked the money to that firm. It was in Kody's name, 2 months prior to our breakup. A ripple of whispers rolled through the courtroom. Cameras snapped. Kody's attorney jumped up again. Objection. That firm isn't established to be owned by my client alone. Alyssa retorted. We have the registration forms, Your Honor. Signed by Kody Brown himself. The judge gazed down at the documents. Objection overruled. Kody's face went white. When the prosecutor asked the evidence to be revealed, the courtroom screen came to life. Transaction records flashed on. Rows of figures, dates, and a signature. The prosecutor pointed. Your Honor, the transfers were from the Joint Family Trust to CK Holdings LLC. Each transfer authorized electronically by this signature. Kody Brown. The lens zoomed closer. Kody's own name stared back at him from the screen. The muttering grew louder. Robin gazed at the screen, her hand clamped over her mouth. She recalled that day. The trip to the bank. The hurried signature. Kody suggested, sign here, it's for tax security. Her stomach nodded. Alyssa spun around towards her abruptly. Mrs. Robin Brown, were you aware of these transfers? Robin stiffened. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Brown, please respond. Robin swallowed. I was present when Kody opened the account. He told me it was a business restructure. I didn't believe it was anything wrong. Did you know the money was coming from the family trust? No, he didn't inform me of that. Kody's eyes widened. Robin, he started to say, but the judge stopped him. Mr. Brown, you will be quiet while others are testifying. The harm was done. As the hearing went on lunch break, Kody sat stunned. His lawyer murmured tactics, but he hardly heard him. His brain was racing. Each thing Meri and Christine said seemed like another nail into the coffin. Outside, the media had issued their verdict. Kody Brown's secret accounts exposed. Robin breaks down in court. Meri and Christine unite against Kody. Inside, Kody's world was breaking down. When the hearing continued, Kody's lawyer attempted to take command again. Your Honor, my client was merely attempting to preserve family funds at a time of uncertainty. Assets were being divided among the wives. He transferred the money temporarily to avoid legal issues. The prosecutor raised an eyebrow. Then why didn't he ever restore them? The courtroom went silent. Kody leaned into the mic, his voice strained. Because I didn't trust anyone anymore. Everyone left me. I was the only one trying to hold things together. The judge eyed him astutely. Mr. Brown, keeping things together doesn't involve breaking the law. These funds were not just yours. Kody pounded his fist on the table. You don't get it. They left me, they turned everyone against me. I earned that money. I won it. Order in the court. The judge barked, gavel crashing. The sound ceased at once. Kody sat back, gasping for breath. The cameras saw it all. His rage, his desperation, his fraying grip. By day's end, one thing was certain. The proof was against him. The judge recessed, scheduling the trial for the next week. When the courtroom had emptied, Kody noticed Meri and Christine departing hand in hand, together for the first time in years. Robin followed behind, speechless, her face ashen. He called out weakly, Robin, wait. She spun on him, tears in her eyes. You told me it was for us. You lied. Then she just went. Kody stood isolated in the courtroom lights. The cameras flashing, the murmurs swirling. For the very first time, the man who once dominated every conversation had nothing to say. And deep within, a sobering thought was taking shape. Maybe the truth was more powerful than him after all. The following morning, the courtroom was different. Heavier, sharper. All the seats were occupied again, not just with journalists this time, but also with curious locals, old fans, and individuals who once thought Kody Brown could do nothing wrong. Kody came in through the side entrance, beside his lawyer. The flash of cameras was like a bolt of lightning. His expression tired now, the charm lost, replaced with stubborn fatigue. He adjusted his tie, refusing to acknowledge the whispers. Meri, Christine, and Robin sat in the front row, separated from each other, but the atmosphere between them was charged. They were not wives anymore. They were witnesses. "All rise," the bailiff declared. Judge Rebecca Hayes walked in, unruffled as ever. She pushed up her glasses, glanced at the files on the bench before her, and said, "We resume today with the presentation of evidence in the state of Arizona versus Kody Brown." Miss Grant, please proceed. Prosecutor Alyssa Grant was tall, with assurance emanating from her tone. "Thank you, Your Honor. Today we will share financial records, paperwork, and video evidence demonstrating that Mr. Brown on purpose moved and hid more than $250,000 of the Brown family trust into his own business, CK Holdings LLC." The words struck the room like a clap of thunder. Kody's face clenched. His attorney leaned in and whispered, "Keep your cool, don't react." But cool had long since fled. The digital trail. The lights went down, and the courtroom monitor came to life. Alyssa gestured toward the screen. "This, Your Honor, is the initial wire transfer. $50,000 transferred on August 12th. Electronically signed by Kody Brown." The photo zoomed in on the digital signature. Kody's name shown in bold black text. "Second transfer, September 3rd. Another $120,000. Authorized from the same bank account." The money was sent to CK Holdings LLC, which is registered under Mr. Brown. She clicked again. Each purchase was within 48 hours of significant family fights or divorce filings, implying on-purpose timing. Gasps from the crowd. Christine spoke softly to Meri. "He transferred money every time we argued." Meri merely nodded, her lips shaking. Alyssa went on. "We followed these funds further. CK Holdings LLC made purchases of several luxury items, a new sport utility vehicle, a cabin rental, and property improvements in Robin's name." Robin's head jerked upright. "That's not true." "I didn't." The judge held up her hand. "Mrs. Brown, you'll get your turn to reply. Be quiet." Robin swallowed hard, her eyes welling up with tears. Alyssa took a step forward. "The consistency is there. Mr. Brown withdrew, shared money, and spent it to enhance himself and his favorite household. These are not errors, they are on-purpose actions." Kody's attorney rose, his voice shaking a little. "Objection, Your Honor. The prosecution is guessing motive. The transactions in question might have been for household use." The judge nodded. "Objection taken but denied. Please go on, Miss Grant." The paper trail. The next slide displayed scanned papers, pages of receipts and bank statements. Alyssa spoke. Each piece of paper was certified by independent accountants. "These are not rumors or TV rumors, they're facts." She walked over to the defense table, putting a folder in front of Kody. "Mr. Brown, do you see this signature?" Kody glanced down. His heart was racing.
Well, yes.
"That's mine. And can you tell me why your name shows up on these transfers without the approval of any co-trustees?" He glanced over at his lawyer, who nodded just a little, telling him to answer wisely. Kody cleared his throat. "Because the family was breaking up. Everybody was upset, and I had to guard what we had left. I didn't want our property to be tied up in litigation or divided unequally." "So you just took them for yourself?" Alyssa snapped. Kody glared at her. "I secured them. There's a difference." The judge's voice snapped in like ice. "Mr. Brown, the court will decide that distinction." "Proceed, Miss Grant." Alyssa smiled weakly. "Gladly, Your Honor." She faced the audience. "We also uncovered text messages between Mr. Brown and a local banker. Those texts reveal that he asked that those transfers be made to be described as private restructuring so they could not be detected by the other signatories." The courtroom was filled with murmurs. Christine gasped loudly. Meri covered her mouth. Robin whispered, "Oh my God." Kody's face reddened. "Those were private messages. You had no right." "Order." The judge bellowed, slamming down his gavel. "This is a court of law, Mr. Brown. Everything you told your banker under subpoena is admissible." The video revelation then came, the moment no one anticipated. Alyssa pulled out a USB drive from her file. Your Honor, the prosecution presents video evidence seized from the Flagstaff First National Bank, September 3rd, the day of the second transfer. The judge nodded. Approved. Show the footage. The monitor flickered once more. Grainy security footage covered the room.
Oh.
There was Kody, sunglasses on, sitting behind a desk at the bank. Beside him was Robin. Whispers and gasps spread throughout the courtroom. In the video, Kody leaned forward, signing several documents as the banker tapped on various sections. Robin seemed visibly uneasy, her hands folded in her lap. The audio was played softly. Banker, so this is the last signature to set up the new account. CK Holdings LLC. Kody, perfect. Let's keep this quiet. It's just a family restructuring.
Oh.
Robin, Kody, are you sure about this? Kody, yes. It's good this way. They don't need to know all the details. The footage ended. The silence afterward was deafening. Robin sat frozen, her hands shaking. Christine looked like she might cry. Not from shock, but from validation. Alyssa's voice broke the silence. Your Honor, this footage clearly shows Mr. Brown intentionally concealing financial activity from the other trustees. Mrs. Robin Brown's discomfort in this video supports that she was not informed of the true purpose. The judge slowly wheeled around to Kody. Is there something you'd like to say regarding this video, Mr. Brown? Kody curled his fists. It wasn't that way. I explained to them. It was for tax purposes. You're taking my words out of context. Alyssa leaned her head to the side. Then why did you say, they don't need to know every detail? Kody's mouth dropped, then snapped shut. No response. The courtroom hummed again. Cameras snapped. Reporters clacked away. Robin's crossroads. After a lengthy delay, the prosecutor summoned Robin onto the stand. She seemed petrified but rose nonetheless, moving painfully to the front. As she took her seat, Alyssa's demeanor became softer. Mrs. Brown, I know this is hard. Can you tell the court what you recall from that day at the bank? Robin drew a quivering breath. He told me it was just paperwork to shield the family business. I had no idea he was transferring money. He instructed me not to say anything to Meri or Christine, because it would create drama. She broke down. If I'd understood it was illegal, I never would have accompanied him. Did you profit from money that was transferred? Robin's head shook, tears falling on her cheeks. No, he paid bills, bought a car. I thought it came from his own income. Alyssa nodded. So you didn't know the money was from the joint trust? Yes, absolutely. When the interrogation was over, Robin rushed off the witness stand, not meeting Kody's eyes. For an instant, he attempted to grab her hand, but she moved away. That slight gesture struck him worse than any proof. Kody's collapsing defense. His lawyer attempted to save what remained. Your Honor, my client was under emotional distress. He thought his family was falling apart and was in a panic to maintain financial stability. There was no criminal intent. The prosecutor fired back quickly. Desperation is not an excuse for dishonesty. Mr. Brown didn't merely transfer funds. He concealed them, misrepresented them, and intimidated people who dared question him. Kody whapped his hand gently on the table. You don't understand. They all abandoned me. They ruined everything I created. The judge's voice was cold. Enough. This is not your theater, Mr. Brown. For a split second, his anger faded, replaced by something else. Fear, the turning point. As the judge called for recess, the courtroom emptied into murmuring chaos. Christine and Meri sat together in the hallway, quiet but united. Reporters swarmed outside, hungry for every word. Inside, Kody remained seated. His lawyer whispered, "We're losing this, Kody. The video killed us." Kody massaged his face. They made my life a circus. I was trying to make everything right, and now they're holding it against me. His attorney sighed. You didn't make it right, Kody. You dug it. Kody said nothing. He simply gazed at the vacant judge's bench, aware, perhaps for the first time, that the family he believed he ruled was lost, and that now the empire he had constructed on deceit was crumbling before his very eyes. He muttered to himself, they needed truth. Now they've got it. But he himself knew in his heart, worst was yet to come. The courtroom was silent when recess ended. But it wasn't the calm kind of silence. It was the heavy, tense kind. The kind that comes right before a storm breaks loose. Kody Brown re-entered the room. Slower this time. The swagger that once defined him was gone. His shoulders slumped. His eyes darted around the room, searching for sympathy. But there was none left. Meri, Christine and Robin were seated across from each other in the courtroom now. Strangers held together by one common specter, him. Judge Hayes resumed her seat. We will now continue with witness testimony. Miss Grant, you may call your next witness. Alyssa Grant rose, voice firm and biting. The prosecution calls. Meri Brown. Meri takes the stand. The room hummed. Meri rose, smoothing her jacket with shaking hands. But her eyes, those were steady, cold, determined. She stepped up to the witness stand and was sworn in. The judge nodded. You may proceed. Alyssa smiled just a little. Mrs. Brown. How long were you married to the defendant? More than 30 years, Meri replied, her voice flat and strong. And while you were married to him, did you have access to the family finances? I did. But once Robin showed up, everything shifted. Kody started opening separate accounts, claiming it was easier that way. Alyssa nodded. Did you ever ask any questions about those changes? Meri spoke directly to Kody. Every time I did, he said I was being paranoid, that I didn't trust him. I quit asking eventually. The room fell silent once more. Mrs. Brown. Alyssa went on, when you heard the news of the theft accusations, what did you feel? Meri took a slow breath. Relief. The audience gasped. Alyssa blinked. Relief. Yes, Meri answered. Because I finally knew I wasn't losing my mind. I knew all those missing years of money, all those investments called off, all those unexpected expenses, it wasn't in my mind. She glanced at Kody once more. He made me feel little. He made me doubt myself. And now everybody gets to see what he actually did. Kody's face reddened as if he was going to burst. But his attorney gestured for him to remain quiet. Thank you, Mrs. Brown. Alyssa murmured. No further questions. Kody's lawyer rose for the cross-examination. Mrs. Brown, isn't it true that you were emotionally distant from my client for years? May this testimony be driven by resentment and not fact? Meri's laugh was bitter. Resentment doesn't pay bills. The gallery burst into murmurs. Even the judge had to conceal a small smirk. Nothing further. The defense grumbled, sitting down. Meri exited the stand. Taller, lighter. For the first time, she seemed to be free. Christine's turn. The prosecution presents Christine Brown. Christine rose to her feet. Her anger was not icy, like Meri's. It was hot, burning in every sentence. She sat in the witness chair, gazing directly at Kody. No fear, no hesitation. Mrs. Brown. Alyssa started. Please describe your relationship with the defendant in the months leading up to the trust dissolution. Christine nodded. Strained. Toxic, truthfully. He stopped coming over. He told me I was being dramatic. But then I checked our mutual accounts. And I saw money going away. Money that was supposed to go to our children. To our future. Did you fight with him? Yes. He claimed it was being reinvested. I wanted to trust him. But whenever I asked to see evidence, he snapped at me. Christine's voice broke. He used to tell me, don't question the man who built this family. But now I realize he wasn't building. He was taking. Kody finally lost it. That's not true. You're distorting it. The judge rapped her gavel. Mr. Brown. One more interruption. And I will hold you in contempt. Kody glared back at his seat, seething. Alyssa looked at Christine once more. Mrs. Brown. Did you ever get any money from Miss Brown once you left the family? Christine shook her head. No, not one penny. He told me I had opted to walk away, so I didn't deserve it. But he spent communal money on houses in Robin's name? Yes. While I was fighting to pay rent, he was renovating her home. Her voice shook now, but it was not weakness. It was anger. This wasn't about money. It was about control. Thank you, Alyssa said softly. No further questions. Christine stood up, breathed deeply, and walked by Kody without a glance. But her words remained, and they were painful. Robin's confession. Finally Alyssa made her next statement. The prosecution calls back Mrs. Robin Brown to the stand. All attention fixed on Robin. She was pale, exhausted. The woman who had always been known for her cool demeanor now appeared brittle, her eyes unfocused with shame. She rose from her seat painstakingly, looking once, just once, at Kody. Mrs. Brown. Alyssa started softly. Having examined the evidence and heard the witnesses, do you still claim that you were not aware of the transactions? Robin paused. Then she shook her head. The room was filled with whispers. Robin's voice broke. At first I didn't know. But later, I figured out what he was doing. He told me it was to keep money from the rest of them, who betrayed him. But I knew in my heart that it wasn't right. Tears streamed down her face. He said, if I kept my mouth shut, everything would be fine. I trusted him. I thought I was doing something good. Alyssa's tone softened. Why are you telling the truth now? Robin glanced at Meri and Christine. Because they deserve it. And because I can't carry his lies anymore. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Brown. You're indicating you voluntarily withheld information from the court early in the investigation? Robin nodded slowly. Yes, Your Honor. But I'm telling everything now. Kody slammed his hand on the table. Robin, don't do this. Enough. Judge Hayes exclaimed. Another interruption, and you will be escorted out of this courtroom. Robin's weeping filled the stillness. He forced me to choose between love and truth. I chose love, but it destroyed everything. Alyssa put her notes aside. No further questions, Your Honor. As Robin exited, she didn't go back to her spot next to Kody. She took a seat behind Meri and Christine instead. Quiet, shattered, but at last telling the truth. The storm breaks. Kody's attorney stood up, frustrated. Your Honor, the defense requests the right for my client to make a personal statement. The judge paused, then nodded. You may proceed, but briefly. Kody stood up. The room became silent. He addressed the crowd. The cameras, the women, the judge. You all believe you know me, he started. You believe I'm this selfish man who used his family, but none of you experienced my life. None of you know what it's like to create a family out of nothing, to bear everyone else's load, to see everything fall apart, because no one ever believed in you. His voice increased. I did what I had to do to guard that which was mine. Those funds, that cash. It belonged to me too. I earned it. I worked for it. I headed this family for decades. Meri yelled out from her chair. You led us to ruin. Order. The judge snapped. But now the room was whirling. Cameras clicking, reporters murmuring, and Kody's anger simmering over. You turned against me all, he shouted. You wanted freedom, independence. Fine, but don't pretend that I'm the bad guy for not giving away everything I established. He pounded his fist on the table. You're saints? You're as greedy, Mr. Brown. The judge cautioned. Calm down or I'll have you removed. But Kody continued, his words tumbling into frenzy. You all left me behind, and now you're sitting there acting like victims. The whole trial's a joke. The bailiff took a step closer. Kody's attorney whispered frantically, Kody, stop. But it was already too late. Judge Hayes banged the gavel. Mr. Brown, you are in contempt of court. Take him away at once. The bailiff took hold of his arm, but Kody yelled, they're lying, all of them, as he was led away, his voice ringing down the corridor. The whole courtroom sat in numb silence. Following the breakdown, Judge Hayes took a deep breath. Court will adjourn for tomorrow for closing statements. Mr. Brown's behavior will be recorded in the record. As all the people stood up and left, the air was thick, no longer with anger, but with sorrow. Christine whispered to Meri, that was the actual Kody. No cameras, no excuses, just the truth. Meri nodded, and once he couldn't talk himself out of it. Robin sat by herself in the back, her eyes fixed on the floor. The woman who used to defend him to the rest of the world now seemed like she barely knew him. Reporters crowded outside, shouting questions. Christine, how do you feel about the outburst? Meri, do you think Kody should go to jail? But the women remained silent. For them, the decision didn't count anymore. The truth had already come out, and that was justice enough. In the empty courtroom, the judge's gavel continued to resonate faintly. The kingdom of Kody Brown, constructed on charm, pride, and control, had finally begun to crumble. And this time, nobody was riding to rescue it. The day of the verdict dawned in a peculiar hush. Cameras blanketed the steps outside the courthouse. their lenses glinting in the Flagstaff sunlight. Reporters stood in clusters, whispering bets, their microphones at the ready. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy. Every other bench was occupied. Fans, reporters, and locals all anxiously awaiting the words that might bring an end to an era. Kody Brown strode in, surrounded by heavy security. Gone was the confident walk he once had. His rumpled suit, loosened tie, even his golden hair, which was once his signature look, now hung limp and lackluster. For the first time, the man who flourished in TV light appeared small. In the other room were Meri, Christine, and Robin, sitting and staring in silence. They were no longer wives, but witnesses to a tale that had at last burned away. Judge Hayes walked in. This court will now resume for the final decision in the state of Arizona versus Kody Brown. The room fell into dead silence. You could hear the quiet hum of the cameras, the rustle of papers, and nothing more. The final arguments. The prosecutor, Alyssa Grant, stood first. Her voice was firm but steady. No theatrics now, just cold truth. Your Honor, she began. We've heard the testimonies. We've seen the evidence, the transfers, the signatures, the video, and even the defendant's own words. This is not a case of confusion or accident. This was calculated deceit. Mr. Brown deceived not only his family, but the trust of all who put their faith in him. He used faith, leadership, and control to cover his tracks. But the truth doesn't lie. He stole from the people who constructed his empire. Kody Brown didn't steal money. He stole dignity, hope, and trust. That's why justice has to be done. The courtroom was silent. Alyssa settled slowly into her seat, her face impassive. Then the defense. Kody's attorney, Daniel Harper, rose. He seemed exhausted, like even he didn't entirely buy what he was about to say. Your Honor, he started. Kody Brown is not a criminal mastermind. He's a man who made desperate decisions in a collapsing family. He was trying to protect his assets, yes, but also his legacy. There was no malicious intent. He glanced at Kody, whose face was buried in his hands. My client has lost everything: his family, his reputation, his home. Whatever is decided here today, he's already been punished in the worst way possible, by truth. And with that, Harper sat down, defeated. All eyes went to Judge Hayes. The moment of truth. Judge Hayes pushed up the glasses on the end of her nose. Her tone was measured, deliberate. This case is not about polygamy, reality television, or family politics. It's about accountability. The evidence shows that Mr. Kody Brown knowingly diverted $250,000 in family funds for personal use. His actions were concealed, and his testimony inconsistent. She looked directly at him. Mr. Brown, you've lived much of your life in front of cameras. But here there are no scripts. There are no edits. There is only the truth. Kody's breathing became shallow. Therefore, the judge continued. This court finds you. The whole room leaned forward. Guilty of financial fraud and theft from a shared trust. Gasps filled the room. Reporters rushed to photograph the moment. Flashbulbs exploded. Kody's head dropped into his hands. For an instant he didn't budge, as if the word guilty hadn't fully sunk in. Judge Hayes went on. Sentencing will be ascertained subject to restitution arrangement. In light of the emotional and financial harm inflicted, this court orders a freeze of all of Mr. Brown's assets forthwith until further notice. She hesitated, then murmured quietly, "Court is adjourned." The gavel came down, bang, and it was finished. The aftershock. Kody remained seated for a long time, still. Cameras focused on his face, white, shattered, dazed. Meri stood, tears brimming in her eyes, not of joy, but of finality. Christine closed her eyes and whispered, "It's done." Robin seemed lost, torn between guilt and relief. As the reporters rushed forward, Christine turned to Meri. "You think he'll ever understand what he did?" Meri shook her head. "He can't. People like Kody don't realize their mistakes until they lose everything. And by then, it's too late." Behind them, Kody was led out of the courtroom. He did not glance back, not once. But as he moved past Robin, she whispered something that almost no one heard. "Tried to save you, Kody, but you wouldn't stop lying." He halted for a moment, then continued on. The secret letter. Hours later, when the courthouse had emptied out, Meri was handed a sealed envelope by Kody's lawyer. It was handwritten, with just to my family. She hesitated over opening it. Christine moved closer, intrigued. There was one note, brief, jerky handwriting. I never meant to hurt you. I thought I was protecting what was mine. But I guess I never understood what family really meant until I lost it. Don't hate me. Just remember who I used to be. Kody. Meri quietly folded the paper. He's not the man we remember, she told him. Christine nodded. No, he's the man we survived. Robin's reckoning. That evening Robin sat alone on the courthouse steps. The lights were low. The crowd dispersed. She gazed out at the vacant street and whispered to herself, this isn't how it was supposed to end. Her phone vibrated. A message from a number she didn't recognize. Message. It's not over. There are more accounts. Find the truth before they do. Robin's eyes went wide. She glanced around. Nobody was there. For a second she wondered if it was a joke. But something within her, that same intuition, that once made her remain quiet, made her think that it was genuine. She erased the message, but her hands were shaking. The tale was not yet done. Christine's peace. Christine, on the other hand, went back home to Utah. For the first time in years, her home was peaceful. No tension, no yelling, no acting. She made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the sun set. In her other hand, she held the summary of the court's verdict. At the bottom was a note from the judge. Justice isn't revenge. It's truth with consequence. Christine smiled faintly. Truth with consequence, she repeated. For the first time in a long while, she finally felt free. Meri's reflection. Meri stood in front of the old family property, now sealed by court order. The brown paint was fading. The sign Brown Family Home, half torn by wind. She ran her hand down the wood and whispered, you stole everything from us, Kody. But you'll never steal who we became after you. A tear fell down her cheek, not of sorrow, but of freedom. She turned, moving away from the remnants of the life that had once defined her. Kody's final scene days later. Kody sat in a tiny holding cell, the sound of the gavel still echoing in his ears. The man who once ruled 4 homes now gazed at concrete walls. On the table there was a folder that said, Restitution Hearing. He opened it and looked at photographs of his former wives, smiling, standing together outside the courthouse, free of him. For the first time his eyes softened. He whispered, maybe they were right. Then he glanced up. The red light of the camera above his cell blinked. The seconds counted. And for once the reality show star, who made a fortune on being watched, actually appeared to want no one to be able to see him at all.